Hi everybody, I hope you're doing safe and well. It's Rob here at Cultivated Management, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how I learn and how I use my personal knowledge management system to get this done. Now of course I've already done a video on personal knowledge management systems, which I'm going to refer to them as PKMS from this point forward. A little bit geeky, but it saves me having to burble on. So in today's video though, I'm going to share with you how I go about actually learning something. Now I'm a management consultant, so I consult and I coach and I mentor and I work with leaders who've brought me in to try and solve problems. Now, one of the challenges in any industry like this, any sort of coaching or consulting career or any industry, is that there's a lot of people who are reading a huge amount of books and then spouting that as theory, as knowledge, as things that they know. Now, there's a lot of unsuspecting clients and managers and leaders out there who'll lap this up thinking that it's actually good knowledge. But the reality is we can read all of these hundreds and hundreds of books a year and we can spout it all off. But unless we've tried it, unless we've put it into action, unless we've learned how it doesn't work or in which situations it needs modifying and mashing together with other things, then it's not knowledge, it's just information. So what I like to do personally when I'm working with clients is to only consult and coach on the things that I know about, those things that I've tried and done, with one exception. Of course, we're going to try new things, we're going to experiment, but we're going to do it safely, and we're going to do it under the 100% knowledge that I've never tried this before, that this is brand new, that it's going to be an experiment and we should do it carefully and thoughtfully. Now, it's a shame that more consultants and coaches don't do this. They read the book, they spout it, and they say that this is gospel. But the reality is that our world is far more complex than that. It's not as simple as reading a theory and applying it. We've got to have understanding of those nuances. We've got to put that information into action to create knowledge. And that's what I'm going to share today, is how I do this. Now, my main approach to learning before we get into the personal knowledge management system is to think about learning in two respects. Over here I've got a drum machine, and over here I've got a whole load of books. There's two really distinct ways to learn. One of them is information acquisition. We read a book, we acquire the information, we maybe add it to our personal knowledge management system, and then it becomes information. That's all it is. It's just information. Until we put that information into action, it's not knowledge. So this is where we're trying to get to when we come to learning, is to take information, apply it, try it, find out when it doesn't work, learn, retrospect, reflect on it, and then turn it into knowledge. So that's one form, which is information acquisition. Then there's a second way to look at learning, and that is from task acquisition. This is learning from doing the task. Now, let's take the drums for example. We could just pick up some drumsticks, we could start bashing away, and we can teach ourselves how to play the drums or the guitar or cooking or business. We can learn by doing the task. Now, this is my favored way of doing things, which is why if you're a manager or leader, I would always encourage you to ensure that on-the-job training, as in training from doing the work while being supervised or coached or mentored by somebody who's already really good at the job, is the best form of learning. None of the learning management systems and the hundreds of courses and the thousands of conferences, they're good, but the best way to learn to do something is to do it. But there comes a point when task acquisition from learning through doing something isn't quite enough, and we need to combine that with the theory, with the information acquisition. And when you get those two things working together, we've learned something, we're going to put it into practice. That's when real good learning happens. And when it comes to the drums, this isn't my drum kit here. This is my son's. I've got 3 boys, and all 3 of them at some point have learned to play the drums. Now, of course, when they sit down and just bash away, it's tuneful, let's put it that way. But it's not the fastest, most effective, most competent way to potentially learn the drums. Of course, there will be people who have learned the drums or the guitar or whatever through just sitting down and doing it. So what we've done is we've combined that with a tutor who's got some theory, who's got some guidance, who's got some mentoring, who's got some feedback, so that when they're playing the drums, they're getting better, and it's wonderful to see it. The shame is that in our world of work, we focus so much on information acquisition, learning management systems, online courses, going to conferences, you name it. I've already mentioned quite a few of these things, but we don't focus enough on doing the work, or we allow people to go and do that information acquisition, which is great and it's worthy, but then we don't give them the opportunity to actually bring that into the workplace and try it and see when it doesn't work. So how does this tie to a personal knowledge management system? Well, quite simply, I've already done a video on this before, so I'm not going to go into the deep dive of it, but the first step to my process of personal knowledge management system is to capture information. Now, information comes in many forms. It could be a conference, it could be a documentary that you've watched, it could be a really good book, could be a website. Now for me, I capture so much stuff, squiggly notes, photos, scans, you name it, all sorts of stuff. And for me, it all ends up in my tool of choice, which is Evernote. Now that's the first step to information acquisition and then task acquisition, which is really what we're talking about here. The first step is to grab and capture the information, but no matter where that information comes from, it's going to end up in a central place, and for me that's Evernote. So that's the first step, which is capture. Now the second stage to my PKMS is to curate. Now just because we can capture all sorts of stuff, and there's loads and loads of information on the internet, and there's books and there's conferences and there's all sorts of ideas that come to us, but then we've got to curate it. Otherwise we may as well just capture the whole internet, and why bother doing that when we can just go online and search for it? So curating is all about firstly asking that important question: do I still want this piece of information? Do I want to do something with it? Do I just want to archive it? Do I just want to label it and put it somewhere so I never see it again? Or do I actually want to crunch this? Is this something that's going to contribute to my knowledge, to my information source? If so, then we're going to move on with it. If not, we want to get rid of it, archive it, do what you wish with it. Curating is also about tagging. It's about adding metadata such as, project names or dates or authors, or where did you get the source from, so you can reference it again in the future. Now Evernote does a really good job of capturing a lot of that information, but it can be sometimes messy. So the curate for me is about going through, do I want this? If yes, what am I going to do with it? And then tag it appropriately. Now for me, step number 3 is then all about crunching it, and crunching it to me is the part where we put it into action. We actually try these things. Now crunching can also be about mashing it together with all sorts of other information. Now let's say I'm reading a book about communication, which is one of my top topics of interest, and there's something that I know jars with a piece of information that I already believe about communication. This happens quite a lot. So I'm going to crunch this piece of information. I'm going to dissect it and understand it, and then maybe find some extra sources that reinforce that point of view or that approach. And then I'm going to mash it together with my existing knowledge to say, actually, I need to change my mind on this, or actually it reinforces it, or actually I'm going to discard it because I don't believe that to be the truth. This is the crunch phase. This is the learning. This is how we assimilate and then accommodate this stuff into our brains. But for me, the crunch is also the action, the sitting down at the drums and trying this thing. Now, let's say it's a new way to edit a video. So I'm going to read the theory, I'm going to capture it, I'm going to curate it, and then I'm going to crunch it. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try some new edits on a video. Then it becomes knowledge. Knowledge is information in action. So we've done capture, we've done curate, we've done crunch. Now it's time to contribute. Now, contribute to me can come in many different forms. Like I may stand up on stage and do a presentation about something that I know works. I never do a presentation on anything that I haven't actually experienced. I might do one of these videos, and again, these videos are based on things that I have actually done, the things that I've tried and I've learned and I've built that knowledge. So I would never do a video about something that is just theory that I've never seen put into action. Contribute could also be you bring it into your workplace as a new way of working, or a new way of running a meeting, or a new way of designing a strategy, or whatever it is that's your field of work. And this could be how you contribute it back into the business. This could be the first time that you're actually going to try this with a client or a customer. So contribution and crunch, they kind of go together. Sometimes in order to crunch something, to understand it, we have to try it and contribute it. So be careful if you're going to do this, be open and honest that this might not work. So for me, contribution is one of the most important stages, because in order to contribute, it means I've really got to understand my subject, my topic, and know it so that I can contribute that with confidence. Now, of course, there are people that wing it with confidence, but when we wing it with confidence about something that we don't truly know happens, then it's only going to get us so far. We're going to come unstuck, and frankly, we shouldn't be dabbling around with our clients' money running experiments that they believe we know the answer to, if that makes sense. Did that make sense? You get the gist. Somebody's paying us, they're paying us for our knowledge. There should be knowledge. It shouldn't be just theory and guesswork. That's what I'm trying to say. So there you go. That's the personal knowledge management system. It's the capture, it's the curate, it's the crunch, it's the contribute. And it all ties into this theory and idea that I like to sort of live my learning life by, which is there's two ways to learn. One, sit down, do it. Task acquisition. We learn from doing the task itself. That's how we do the learning. Then there's the other side, which is the information acquisition, which is theory, information, data, memorizing facts. And really the best learning happens when we bring the two things together. We read a good book, we understand some great theory, and then we put it into practice. Now, of course, if I had to choose one of these two, task acquisition every day, there's no better way to learn how to do your job than to do the job with some constructive feedback, with some mentoring, with people who are already excellent at the job. But the theory side is really important as well. So really, you're gonna need both, but try really hard, particularly if you're in the field of work of giving other people advice, to ensure that it's not just theory. I mean, that's just devastating for those people who are paying for that, only to find out that you've never tried it, you've never done it, it's never been implemented. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been helpful and useful. And with that, I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in the next video.